Good evening and welcome to the public information meeting for State Project number 144-199, the White Plains Road Commuter Lot Trail Connector. My name is John Richer. I'm the project manager from Ty and Bond. With me tonight are Bill Marr, the town engineer from the town of Trumbull, Craig Yanis, our lead traffic engineer from Ty and Bond, also Jack Carlson from the Connecticut DOT Rights-of-Way, and Jim Culpa from VHB, who's the Connecticut DOT consultant liaison for this project. Tonight's presentation will include introduction to the project's purpose and need, our objectives, go over the existing conditions, talk about our proposed design elements, the construction cost estimate, right-of-way acquisition that's required in that process, the project schedule, and then address any public questions and comments. So Trumbull has a great trail network, but one of the deficiencies that's been noted is a lack of parking and trailhead areas for access to that network. In addition, the sidewalks along White Plains Road are not continuous and they lack accessible ramps. There's a lot of short segments of sidewalk on both sides of the roadway, but not really a continuous network. The current roadway configuration also encourages high travel speeds. There's currently 4 travel lanes with wide shoulders, and that excess pavement width encourages high vehicle speeds. Back in 2021, the DOT identified this segment of White Plains Road as a great candidate for a road diet, which we'll talk about in a little more detail during tonight's presentation. It's also difficult for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross the roadway. The 4 travel lanes and high travel speeds combine to make it a very difficult environment. And then finally, there's a lack of any bicycle facilities on this segment of White Plains Road. There's no bike lanes on the roadway, and the sidewalks are only 4 to 5 feet wide, which is not wide enough for bicycles to access. So our objectives are to create a continuous multi-use path from the Shawnee Road commuter lot up to Twin Brooks Park. The project will extend the previous improvements that the town did from Trumbull Center south to Twin Brooks Park. So we'll be picking up at that where that project ended previously. We want to improve safety for all users. So that means vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists alike. There are 3 primary crossing locations in this segment of the roadway. Shawnee Road at the south end, the Wesley Drive and Christian Heritage School crossing kind of in the middle of the project area, and then the Route 25 northbound off-ramp across from Twin Brooks Park. They're the primary crossing locations. So we're going to try to improve safety for crossings at all 3 of those. We want to enable the use of the commuter lot for trail network parking so that we can relieve the burden on some of the other trailhead areas that are currently heavily parked and overwhelmed at periods of high trail use. We want to create attractive trailhead area at the commuter lot to also encourage its use. And then as part of the project, we also want to provide an acceptable level of traffic operations. The goal of tonight's public information meeting, it's an opportunity for the public to provide input on the design. We're currently in the preliminary design phase of the project. The input from the public will be seriously considered as we move into the final design. Your comments also become part of the project record, and it's also a requirement of the program funding this project, the Transportation Alternatives Program. So our project area extends from Twin Brooks Park at the north, across from the Route 25 northbound off-ramp, south past the Christian Heritage School, down to the Merritt Parkway overpass, just beyond Shawnee Road and the commuter lot. Kind of breaking up the corridor into 3 different pieces. We'll start at the north end near Twin Brooks Park. There's an existing 10-foot wide path that comes down from Trumbull Center and ends at the Twin Brooks Park entrance. From that point, there's a trail that the DOT previously constructed on the south or west side of the roadway that goes down Rocky Hill Road and under the Merritt Parkway and becomes part of the Pequannock River Trail. In this northern segment, there is a sidewalk on the north or east side from Twin Brooks Park down to the bridge over Booth Hill Brook or the Pequannock River. That bridge has a pretty wide sidewalk on the northeast side. It's about 14 feet wide, but there's no sidewalk on the opposite side. A couple photos of that area. The photo on the left is the entrance to Twin Brooks Park, and you can see the segment of multi-use path that the town previously constructed running north. And then the picture on the right is the wide sidewalk on the northeast side of the bridge over the Pequannock River. The middle of the project area is near Christian Heritage School and Wesley Drive. So starting at that same bridge, working south, there's sidewalk on the north or east side, I guess north side from Wesley Drive to Twitchgrass Road, but it's an isolated segment and there's nothing from the bridge south to Wesley or south of Twitchgrass on that side. On the opposite side of Christian Heritage School, there's no sidewalk at all from the bridge down to the school exit driveway. There's also a mid-block crossing at Wesley Drive that leads to the Christian Heritage School, but right now you have to cross 4 lanes of traffic. There's only a sign indicating to drivers that there's a potential crossing there, and the sidewalk ramps on both sides don't connect to any other sidewalk network, so you're kind of left at an island on both sides. So this is the photo on the left is White Plains Road looking south to the south of Wesley Drive. This is the one sidewalk segment in this piece. And then the picture on the right is the mid-block crossing at Wesley Drive that leads to Christian Heritage School. But like I said, you can see there's no sidewalks on the south side of the roadway, so it doesn't really provide a good connection to the school. At the south end of the project area, near Shawnee Road and the commuter lot, there's sidewalk on the south side from the school exit driveway that leads to the commuter lot, but there's no sidewalk at all on the north side. The Shawnee Road intersection is signalized, but there's only a crossing on the east leg. No marked crosswalks or pedestrian signal heads on the Shawnee Road side or the commuter lot side or the west leg of White Plains Road. The commuter lot is not very heavily utilized. Going back through aerial imagery, it's only a handful of cars parked there at most times. So one of the goals of the project is to better utilize that lot and provide access to the trail network. These two photos are the Shawnee Road area near the commuter lot entrance. The photo on the left is looking north. You can see there's some nice landscaping along the commuter lot. You can see there's 2 travel lanes northbound and 2 travel lanes southbound through this intersection right now. They're not marked as left turn lanes, so vehicles in the left are able to make a left turn, but also backup cars behind them that are trying to travel straight through the intersection. And then the picture on the right is just looking southbound at the same intersection. So this is a typical cross-section through the majority of White Plains Road. It's 4 lanes wide. Each are about 11 feet wide with 4-foot wide shoulders on the side. The sidewalk exists in, like I said, a couple isolated segments, but it's not continuous. And that excess width really encourages high travel speeds throughout the corridor. So now Craig Yanis is going to talk about some of our traffic data collection and analysis that we performed.
Thanks, Sean. As he said, I'm Craig Yanis from Ty & Bond, the lead traffic engineer for the project. I'm just going to go a little bit through some existing traffic data and then talk about some of the concepts that we're recommending for this segment. So the traffic data we collected in April 2024 over a period of many days with tube counters, the ones that go across the roadway, they measure directional traffic and speed. This supplements the data that we have from the road diet study that was done by Connecticut DOT and by us, Ty & Bond, which had additional data for the same locations that we're talking about within this project. as well as DOT's historical data. So on average, every 3 to 4 years, they take traffic counts like these. So we have a really good idea what's happening on the corridor over time. So as you see here, this is the data we collected in April. The posted speed limit is 40 miles an hour, the 25 mile an hour school zone along Christian Heritage School. But we saw the actual 85th percentile speed, and we call this kind of the operating speed of the roadway. So that means that 85% of the people are traveling at that speed or slower, 46 miles an hour. So in excess of the speed limit. We saw quite a few max speeds in the 60s and 70s. So, taking that wide pavement width and not feeling a lot of pressure from anything else and being able to go pretty quickly through this segment. So that's something we want to address with this project. You can see the average daily traffic there. So this is the number of vehicles per day, total in both directions. It ranges around 20,000 for most of the segment until you get south of Merritt Parkway, and then it drops significantly. So now we're kind of going to go towards some of the concepts that we're going to talk about for the segment, and as John mentioned about the study that DOT performed, the road diet study. They looked at 4-lane roadways, right, 2 lanes in each direction, to try to find ones for road diets, and then we'll explain quite a bit about road diets on the next couple of slides. But the first is obviously, what is a road diet? So it's really a fancy name for reducing the amount of lanes on a roadway. So generally, like the picture shows on the right, taking a 4-lane roadway and making it a 3-lane roadway. So you have one lane in each direction, and then alternating left turn lane in the middle to facilitate turns. You also have the ability to take those middle lanes and make them turn lanes at an intersection. So that's essentially what it does in terms of the function of the roadway itself. A lot of things can be done with the room created by a road diet, aside from all the safety benefits, which I'll get to in a minute. But basically, for this project, the room created within the corridor allows you to put other things within the roadway. So bikes and pedestrians in particular, having facilities for them is important, and make it a complete street. So what are the benefits of a road diet? So this shows the key one from a vehicular standpoint. Essentially, there's fewer lanes to cross when you're making movements. So if you're trying to make a left turn across the traffic stream in the other direction, you have to cross 2 vehicles, the picture on the left. In the road diet concept, you only have to cross 1. When you're making a right turn, in the 4-lane undivided, you have a chance to weave around, which actually causes quite a few crashes, as we'll see in the data in a minute. And when you have a 3-lane section, you could just make that movement, slow down, kind of normalizes the speed of the roadway. And the big thing about this is, and the thing that's really hard to get past when we talk about the road diet concept, is it really doesn't have a significant detriment to traffic capacity. Generally, when you have a 4-lane roadway, people are constantly jockeying back and forth between the lanes. Those left lanes going in either direction really operate as a left turn lane anyway, because people are trying to wait for the other travel stream to come towards them and make the turn. So it's actually pretty close to the same traffic capacity for most roadways. And there's obviously stipulations and requirements about volume that we use when we select a road diet. That's all been studied here. This is within the range of what we think will work, and we'll show you the operations in a moment here as well. So just to frame out a little bit more, other than just from a vehicular standpoint or putting some numbers to it, what are the benefits of a road diet? So on the right-hand side, you see a page from Connecticut's Strategic Highway Safety Plan. They have many of these to talk about different concepts that are really beneficial to safety. Road diets definitely being one of them, so you could see the numbers on the screen. Overall crash reduction of 19 to 47%, particularly rear end, side swipe, and left turn crashes. And left turn crashes are usually the most severe, so that's important. It calms the traffic. There's more consistent travel speeds. Definitely on a 4-lane roadway, you get people traveling in different speeds in the same direction. And that's where when you have that difference, that large difference, that's where the safety really degrades. Because you have somebody flying up on the right, they can't see a pedestrian, they can't see another vehicle trying to turn in the opposite direction. There's many ways why this crash reduction is realized. Like I mentioned before, it can better accommodate all the users, right? You take space away from the vehicles, but you accommodate them in an alternative way, which is similar capacity, but it gives you space for bicycles, pedestrians, on-street parking in some cases, transit stops. It really makes the road for everyone. And obviously from a safety standpoint, if you're a pedestrian or a bicyclist, you have less distance to travel across travel lanes if you're doing a 3-lane segment instead of a 4-lane segment. And ultimately, it's a really low-cost solution, which makes it really attractive. So either while you're resurfacing a roadway, you can restripe it from this 4 lanes to 3, or in this project where we're doing other infrastructure improvements like the trail, this gives us more space to do that, and it's really not a huge added cost to the project. So why are we doing road diets here? So I mentioned the study that we did. Ultimately we want to address the traffic safety deficiencies that we see, the speed, the crash data, which I'll get to in a minute, the lack of connections for bicycles and pedestrians, the fact that the trail ends just north of the study area. This really connects it to the commuter lot, connects it to the south. Ultimately we have a responsibility as engineers to make the roadways safe. And that's what we're here to do. And we really think this balances the needs of all the users of the corridor. And ultimately, high speed and vehicle mobility should never come at the expense of human life. And that's why we really are recommending this road diet for this segment. So just talking a little bit about the safety. So just along the segment that we're looking at for the project, there was 48 different crashes in a 3-year period. You can see the percentages there: angle, rear end, side swipe, same direction. Those are 3 that are particularly, taken away by the road diet, right? The road diet's beneficial to remove angle collisions. The one thing I didn't mention in the previous slide, an angle collision also can be somebody entering from a side street, and they only have to traverse 2 or 3 different lanes, depending on the direction that they're going, as opposed to the 3 or 4 that they have to do in a 4-lane segment. So that's another benefit in terms of the angle collisions. You see the rear ends there, the side swipes, where people are trying to get around someone. This normalizes the flow. And in terms of the severity, just want to add that too. There was 1 serious injury of the 48 and 11 minor injuries. So hopefully with that 19 to 47%, we could take that down to 0 serious injuries and prevent them in the future and reduce those minor injuries. So obviously the piece that some people may be interested in with this, what happens to the cars, right? We're taking this lane and kind of reusing it in a different way. And what we do for this is we project the traffic out, and when you look at a corridor, the intersections are the key capacity component for the most part, unless you're on expressway, which this is not. So you have the intersections, they're kind of controlling your flow through the corridor. So what we do is we take our traffic volumes and we project them out 20 years, and that's what you see here. So 2044 is the volume set that we used. The no build would be what exists now without any changes. If we just went 20 years in the future, these are the operations we would expect. So as the public probably knows, and many of the users of the corridor, we've been working on this corridor for a long time. It's pretty pristine operations. Even with a growth rate 20 years, you could see level of service A and B, which is way more than acceptable, honestly. From a safety standpoint, it starts to degrade the safety because you're going too fast and you can kind of get through the corridor quickly. So we're looking for a level of service C or D being acceptable on a roadway like this. And with the improvements, so you see the 2 proposed columns, we have weekday morning on the left, weekday afternoon on the right. You see that acceptable operations are still there in the future with the proposed cross-section that we're recommending for this. So level service C, which is a great number for the morning, and level service A and B for the afternoon. So one more slide from me about one other traffic control item we want to add to the corridor, and this is for the crossing at Christian Heritage School, rapid flashing beacon. So this is basically something that's actuated or activated by the pedestrian that comes up, they want to cross. They push the button to indicate. There's a rapid series of bright flashing lights, kind of like a strobe light effect. It's been proven to be very effective in increasing car stopping for those pedestrians. and ultimately improve safety for the crossing. So we think combined with the road diet, making that crossing distance shorter, you also have this added safety benefit for the school users, for the trail users to come up and down the corridor. It's an important piece to make sure there's additional protection for those pedestrians at this location. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to John to talk about the different segments and kind of lay this out for you through the corridor.
Thanks, Craig. So for each segment here, we're going to kind of show an existing aerial to recap what it looks like today, and then we'll flip to a rendering of what we're proposing. So we're starting at the north end again. This is up near the Twin Brooks Park entrance. Like I said before, sidewalk on the east side and the trail network on the southwest side. So for this segment, we're proposing a 10-foot wide bituminous, which is asphalt, multi-use path starting at the existing path at the Twin Brooks Park entrance and going south along the north or east side of the roadway. We'll be implementing the road diet starting up at the Route 25 northbound off-ramp and working south through the corridor. So like Craig described, you can see that we'll have one through lane in each direction, which will be about 11 feet wide. And then down the middle, it'll be a 14-foot wide, either two-way left turn lane or just a left turn lane if there's segments where there's not a need to turn onto one side of the road or the other. We'll be installing accessible ramps at all the intersections. So if you've seen the segment to the north of here, it'll be very similar with concrete ramps at each side street with detectable warning strips to make it accessible for all users. We're going to be kind of further defining the driveway at the Shell gas station because right now it's a wide crossing that makes it very difficult for bikes and pedestrians to get across safely. So we're introducing a kind of a refuge island in the middle and better defining what those driveway aprons look like to make it a little safer for users. So then the path will end at the existing bridge. We're going to take advantage of that wide, 14-foot wide sidewalk that's on the northeast side right now and utilize that as part of the trail network and meet it on both sides. This is the middle section from the bridge south to around Village Drive. Similar to what I described, the lane arrangement is basically the same throughout this section. Same, one through lane in each direction with a two-way left turn lane down the middle. At the property just south of the bridge, we're again going to kind of better define that driveway. It's a very wide driveway right now. So we're channelizing that a little bit to make it a little bit easier to get across. There's currently no sidewalks on either side in this section, so this will be a vast improvement to connectivity through this stretch. This segment is kind of along the Christian Heritage School near Wesley Drive and Village Drive. Again, you can see the conditions I described before where the crossing doesn't lead anywhere, and there's only one isolated sidewalk segment right now on the north side. So we'll be continuing the multi-use path down the north side in this stretch. We're moving the curb line out slightly to create more room and not have as many property impacts along this section. If we didn't narrow the roadway, we would have had property impacts at several additional properties around here along this stretch. Excuse me. So the goal was to minimize the amount of work that would be happening on private property. One of the main focuses in this segment is that we're going to try to improve the safety of the crossing at Christian Heritage School. Craig showed a graphic of what an RRFB looks like. So we're going to implement those at the crossing of White Plains Road, which will allow users to come up to it, press the button, get flashing beacons that'll alert vehicles that they need to stop for a crossing, which will be a vast improvement on the signage that's there right now. At Wesley Drive and the school entrance driveway, we have dedicated left turn lanes. So again, that'll improve safety because vehicles making those left turn movements only have to worry about crossing one through lane now instead of looking at two approaching lanes that they needed to navigate. We're also going to be extending the sidewalk on the south side. So when you come across that crossing now, we're going to extend the sidewalk along the frontage of Christian Heritage School to their exit driveway. So it'll make a continuous connection down to the commuter lot from this crossing on the south side as well. And then the final piece at the south end is near the commuter lot. I described the conditions there previously. This is near the Merritt Parkway overpass. So in this segment, again, we're taking advantage of the road diet to move the curb line out into the roadway and minimize the amount of impact that we have on private properties. If we weren't doing the road diet, these three properties between Shawnee Road and Twitchgrass would have had the trail either on their property or butting right up against it and would have resulted in some major impacts to the landscaping. So we were trying to minimize that impact while still, creating a facility that's really going to help users of this corridor. So the trail will end at Shawnee Road, where we have new crossings on all four legs of the intersection. Currently, there's only a crossing on the east leg. So we're introducing crosswalks on all four legs, as well as pedestrian signal heads that'll make it safer and easier to cross the Shawnee Road intersection. Similar to what I said up further north, at this intersection, rather than two through lanes now, we'll have dedicated left turn lanes and then one through lane in each direction. And then finally, we have improved connection to the commuter lot that'll lead you to and from the commuter lot to the new trail. As we go south under the Merritt Parkway, we'll have a dedicated left turn lane for a substantial stretch as well to facilitate that movement onto the Merritt Parkway on-ramp. One additional feature that we're looking to implement in the project is kind of an enhanced treatment at the trailhead area near the commuter lot. Trying to create a strong connection from the trail to the lot that will promote use of the lot and kind of create a gathering area as you're leaving your vehicle and getting ready to embark on a trip on the trail. So we're proposing enhanced landscaping, seating, bike racks, possibly a kiosk with some maps and information about the trail. It's really an area for people to gather after you get out of your car and are getting organized to go out onto the trail. This is a view from the parking lot side, so you can see the enhanced landscaping and the kiosk and some of the features that'll make it a nice area and a transition from the parking lot to the trail itself, kind of mimicking some of the other trailhead areas that exist in Trumbull right now. These are some of the materials that we're planning to implement in that trailhead area, kind of traditional New England materials like a granite stone seat wall and stone pillars and black metal bike racks. So while we did seek to minimize the amount of property actions that would be required, there are two properties where we're proposing small easements right now to be able to construct the multi-use path, primarily because of jogs in the right-of-way line. In addition to those two property actions, we will also have construction rights at several properties for driveway reconstruction and minor grading if necessary. So the DOT rights-of-way group will be contacting any affected property owners directly. The two right-of-way acquisitions or easements that are proposed in the preliminary design are just south of the bridge and north of Village Drive. These two properties, like I said, the property line or the right-of-way line jogs. So the area shown in yellow is the proposed easement, and you can see it's a pretty minor taking that's required just to be able to push the trail through on that side. Now, Jack Carlson's going to talk about the DOT rights-of-way process.
Thank you, John, and good evening. My name is Jack Carlson. I'm an assistant project coordinator with the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Division of Rights-of-Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights required for transportation projects. So as John mentioned in the presentation, this project will require a few easements to be acquired, and I'd like to give a brief overview of our acquisition process. Any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 13A 73 as well as 13A 98E and the Federal Uniform Act. Additionally, the specific right-of-way impacts are still being finalized and are subject to change as the project design progresses. However, with the current design, requires, as John mentioned, the 2 easements for the multi-use path as well as temporary rights for driveway reconstruction and grading. So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the project design has progressed to a development milestone. At this point, all the impacts have been determined, and each affected property owner will receive from our office a formal letter of intent to acquire, along with a property map that will depict the specific property rights that they will be impacting their property. Next, our office will determine the fair market value for the specific property rights being acquired, and that will be used to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer then will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a rights-of-way agent will make themselves available to explain the project as well as the specific impacts to their property and the department's offer. The property owner will have a reasonable amount of time, typically 30 days, to consider the department's offer and enter negotiations. When an agreement is reached, the department will prepare any necessary paperwork to record the deed for the acquired rights as well as the property map on the town land records, which will perfect the acquisition. However, if an agreement is unable to be reached and is reached, in order to keep the project on schedule, the department will acquire the necessary property rights via eminent domain. In that event, the state will file a notice of condemnation with the Superior Court, and the department's initial offer will be deposited with that court. The affected property owner would then have 6 months to file an appeal if from the date on the notice of condemnation, if they felt that the offer was inadequate. Whether or not the property owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited within the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner at any time. It's important to note that the department only acquires property rights necessary for the project. If there are any questions regarding the right-of-way acquisition process, I can answer them after the presentation. And with that, I'll hand it back to John.
Thanks, Jack. So in terms of schedule, we're currently in the preliminary design phase. Preliminary design approval is anticipated after the conclusion of this meeting by around June 18th. Then we'll move into the final design phase, which should wrap up in early February of 2026, with the goal of advertising for construction in early April of 26, so that the town can move into construction in fall of 2026 and likely continue into 2027. The Transportation Alternatives Program is funding this project. That program is 80% federal funding with a 20% Town of Trumbull match. The current preliminary construction cost estimate is $1.75 million for what we've outlined tonight. And with that, we'll open the presentation up to public comments and questions. If there are any questions from the public that are not in attendance, you can send them to the town engineer's office, to Bill Marr. A copy of this presentation will also be posted on the town's website after tonight. Thank you.
Good job, John.
Where's our guy? We have to end. He left.
Yeah. Don't say anything bad.
All right. Lights are red.
I come down. Comments?
I would know that. unfortunately. I thought it said something about 2 weeks, but
Maybe it's 14 days.
yeah, I think it is 2 weeks because 18th is the approval date. Pretty sure I saw something about that somewhere. It's 14 days to provide comment. Yeah, well, yeah, did we get any feedback? Did. Or, oh, excellent.
They said
We got a
Dan,
lot of pieces, so,
they said Dan was fine.
yeah, we're all set.
Comments due back?
It was 14 days,